All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Town Council meeting for May. We've got some absent. Mr. Ben Green will be late, probably around 8 o'clock. He's at a school function. Officer Scott will be with us shortly. I now call the meeting to order. I ask you to join us for a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us come together tonight in a great community. Father, we've got a big agenda tonight with several issues that could create division. Give us peace. Give us a sense of community tonight as we deliberate over these decisions. And I ask, Father, that you give us all, especially us here at this table, the grace and the compassion to deal with any issue tonight in a respectful and dignified manner. We ask for these things in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We now invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first part of our agenda tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very busy. I expect we'll have lots of public comments. So tonight, during these public hearings, I'm going to probably try to steer them along quickly. Everyone will have a chance to speak. If we get to an impasse, I may ask a member of council to table. And I may also ask staff to just look on your calendar quietly during the meeting. My gut instinct tells me tonight's meeting may need to be continued to maybe next Wednesday. If we get through this agenda tonight, because I know we have a closed session that's very important, so it may get to the point at 9:30 tonight, I may just say, look, we're going to go to closed session and take on the rest. I'd like to do it later this week, but the Memorial Day holiday approaching, but maybe the following Wednesday, and that would allow us to load up and maybe not have a long June meeting when we have a budget hearing. The first of 6 advertised public hearings tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is a simple amendment to our bad check policy. We charge $35 if someone bounces a check. We're trying to also include that for people who pay with credit cards. And Mr. Town Manager, could you explain briefly for the audience what that entails?
Very briefly, and Tessie did prepare the ordinance and did the research for it. It's been duly advertised. It is basically making all forms of payment on par. Right now we have a bad check policy, but this would add the credit cards and other forms of payment, that electronic payments and that sort of thing. So now it would be $35 across the board. Am I correct in
No matter how
that?
you pay.
And so it's still called a bad check policy, but it now includes electronic payment and credit cards and that sort of thing.
How would a credit card payment, quote unquote, go bad, so to speak?
It would, if someone disputes the charge, if someone else uses, if a child uses their parent's card and the parent disputes it.
That person, that user, the unauthorized user, would be charged $35.
Right.
What happens is, we'll go ahead and accept the credit card, whether somebody's authorized by grandma to use it or the family to use it.
Right.
And what happens is, whenever somebody contests the charges, the bank automatically will not reimburse us.
Gotcha.
Withdraw the payment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we've had a couple instances in the past.
We have, I know. And so for the town to get its $35 from that violator, what would the town have to do?
Well, if it's not gonna be able to be paid on the credit card, or if there's a dispute, I guess the town would have to follow up with an earnest process or some other kind of collection process if somebody
Okay.
refused to provide payment on it.
Very good. We'll go into public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this proposed amendment to our policy? It is an ordinance. Seeing and hearing none, members of council, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion, we adopt it.
Second.
Motion been made by Mr. McCure, seconded by Mr. Nash. Any further discussion? Questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That motion carries 6-0. The next is a request to vacate a public alley behind College Avenue between 3rd and 4th Streets. I know this has been discussed previously in these chambers. To refresh my memory, did the Planning Commission discuss this at all? This has strictly been
It's strictly town
okay,
council.
very good. Mr. Novak.
We have a request from the marshals that live on the corner of 3rd and College to abandon or vacate an alley which is behind their home and runs in a north-south direction between 3rd and 4th, directly behind those lots. And I think there's not only a diagram of the tax maps, but also a legal description of the ordinance of vacation. Pretty standard. And there's been some questions. Does the town use this? Is there intention? I can just tell you, no, it's not the town's plan to ever use it, nor do I anticipate. It's pretty low ground, and it probably wouldn't be a great place to put a driveway or an alley or any of that sort of thing. So we don't have any expected use for the alley.
Is a request for the entire alleyway? At one point, there was talk of a compromise just behind the Marshall House.
Request is advertised for the entire.
For the entire alleyway. At this time, anyone here to speak for or against the proposal, other than the marshals? I know you're for it. Mr. Marshall, anything you care to say?
No, sir, obviously that property was surveyed with the amalgamation of the town. Nobody's used it in forever. I've had one instance where somebody tried to drive through the ditch. And Officer Scott can tell you I had everything but a swimming pool there. I mean, it was disastrous. It was 2 feet wide and probably 60 feet long as they went down my ditch line. Now granted, they stopped at the property line when they re-entered the roadway, but it's the same ditch. There's 350 feet at least behind my property that's open.
Right.
I stopped, I had conversation with a young man at the fire department, and he said that if they have one truck that could probably maneuver over that ditch and come into a grassy area. If there was ever a fire, they'd come from the road.
They would.
He told me that they carry roughly 5,000 feet of hose on a truck and that they would have no problem. I also spoke to the gentleman who attended at her previous fire, and he told me that, yes, he went in and he disconnected the stove, but he entered from the street as well. Most of the houses on that side of the road do not have an alley.
That's correct.
There's none. To the right of me, a gentleman has a swimming pool. The next fellow has a chain link fence. Then there's me, and of course I don't want an alley. And then it's open behind her with the exception of several trees. There's an encroachment. I'm told there's a 10-foot building variance that has to be between the property line and the alley if I want to put a structure up. Isn't that right?
15 feet, I thought, wasn't it? If you want to put a,
Accessory structure need to be 5 feet off of any.
just 5 feet? Wow.
Accessory structure, dog pen.
Or a place to put your, a little house to put your lawnmower, yeah,
Okay,
shed.
so if I go to her property, she has a shed that backs 3 feet 2 inches from the alleyway line. The gentleman to the left of her has a propane tank that heats his swimming pool and a shed that I'm sure are on the alley easement. I'm not trying to cause problems for my neighbors. I just don't want to right away behind my house.
But by vacating this alleyway, that would actually bring those people into compliance with the setback, wouldn't it?
Well, you would split the alleyway half and half,
It's 10-foot wide alley.
you get 5 and 5. So
Yeah.
Mr. Marshall's property would increase by 5 feet as an act of quick claim when we just vacate, and doors 5 feet, and the fellow with the swimming pool 5 feet at the corner. And on the other side, the lots to the rear of Mike's house, I think is also doors.
That's all hers.
And then she would gain 5 feet on the opposite side of the alley. So by act of vacation, and we just literally quit claim, we walk away from our ownership, and then by state code, it splits half and half to adjoining property.
Is there anything recorded at the courthouse to make sure that, okay,
Just vacation.
very good, very good. Anyone else tonight? Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
And I did call Miss Gwen Thursday or Friday to remind her of it, and she thanked me, and I didn't know if she was gonna be here. I don't see her here, but I did.
Did she indicate if her
advise her.
position has changed or anything?
She did not, but she
Okay.
just thanked me for calling her and reminded her.
Very good. Anyone else tonight on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Is there, not that it's a bad idea or a good idea, but with VUMAC and the possibility of that maybe this week, next week, whatever we may happen of it, is there a way we can wait till next month to vote on it now that we've had the public hearing?
You certainly can. Is there a timetable where the public hearing becomes null and void? I
I'm
wonder.
sure there's a legal requirement, I don't know what it would be. I know certain things with planning commission have a 90-day sunset if you don't act and things like that, but
Okay.
for this purpose, no.
Well, with the sale of the property, I'd like all parties to be, I mean,
Well, why don't you continue it specifically in a motion, if you're gonna do it, continue to a specific date, and just say, instead of leaving it open-ended.
yeah.
We have, and
I mean, I
just-
see the tea leaves that it would be
Yeah.
vacated, but you want to ask the party, whoever it be.
there is considerable speculation, and I stress the word speculation, that the VUMAC property could be sold this month. There's even a rumored closing date for next week. Nothing's been recorded at the courthouse. Would it be possible if, I've mentioned the fact we may continue this meeting to Wednesday, May the 30th? Would that be,
Why don't you say no later than the June meeting, and then if you do it sooner than that,
no later than June 30th?
Man, this window walked in.
Okay. Ms. Doris Wynn, in fairness to you, we are discussing the proposed alleyway vacation, and we've heard from everybody in the audience that wanted to speak, and no motion has been made. Mr. Nash just said that, and we heard from Mr. Mike Marshall, gave a very compelling case. Mr. Nash has recommended to council the possibility of not taking action tonight based on there are rumors that the VMAC property, and they've been rumors for months, could sell in the days ahead. That is where we stand right now. There have been no bombshells or anything else that you haven't heard previously. We just finished discussing this issue. What is your pleasure, council, to the request and/or Mr. Nash's,
I second his motion.
well, he is not, there's no motion on the floor.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion to table?
Yeah, I'll move to table until the June 17th, 18th meeting,
Or sooner.
or sooner.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, hold on, let me make sure the motion has a say. Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
I second it.
All right, discussion. Yes, Kim Marshall.
Why would we delay this for somebody that might be potentially buying a piece of property?
Someone may want that alleyway to get to that property that fronts Fourth Street.
Right.
I'm
They
all
would be plowing through
for
people's
poss-
property.
Say what?
They would be plowing through people's property.
Well, that's their right then at that point. They would have to move the
But this
propane
is-
tank.
this
They'd have to
isn't somebody
move
that currently owns it. Who owns it currently?
the Methodist.
Yeah. And this has been advertised properly, they should be here, the current owner, not a potential owner.
Well, that is certainly true. It is certainly a tough issue.
I don't think that's reasonable. We requested this last August. Yeah.
And I know the
I
committee,
think the current owner of UMac should be here if they're opposing or if they have opinions.
Correct.
But the potential owner, this has been going on since last August. The potential owner could,
And if this contract falls through like the last one, we
Well-
could be looking at the same thing a year from now.
Well,
But the whole
then,
reason we
come
brought this up-
June, we'll be voting and you'd vacate your alleyway. I mean,
But the whole reason we brought this forward is because I don't want a right of way behind my house.
but what if the person, and I can understand if you vacate half of it, the one behind your house, and leave
That's all
open
we're
the other
asking
end.
for.
That's all I've asked for.
So, I mean, that's all I want to do is make sure that all parties are heard. I mean, I don't want to screw a deal up that is huge like VUMAC.
but all we're asking for is the part behind our house.
and the good news is because it was advertised for the entirety, council can certainly do something smaller. And that's wisely advertised, Mr. Town Manager and staff. I think, and I'm just me thinking out loud, Mr. Nash and I discussed this for like 5 seconds out in the parking lot before we came in. If the deal goes through and VUMAC, whoever buys VUMAC has exciting plans, could there possibly be a need for a town alleyway to service whatever could be built? I don't know of anything being built there. In fact, the rumors I've heard is that part of the property would not be bought. It'd just be the college property per se, where the VUMAC building is.
I would say anything to be done with it, we would have to require the developer or whoever has the properties to build the road. I don't think the town would be in that
Right.
business to-
An entranceway and all that in there.
It's a pretty low spot back in there.
Right.
It's gonna take some energy and some effort to build ditches and road beds and all those kind of things, support garbage trucks or for whatever.
But I know of no inside, I don't want the marshals to think there's some inside deal going on here where we're pulling the rug out from under you. I just think that there is a very prevalent rumor. I've been privy to an email that suggests that this one's going through, but I've been heartbroken before. But there is a motion, a second on the floor to table. Does anyone oppose that motion before we vote? And the motion is to vote, there will be a vote no later than June, the third Monday in June, which is
June
June
18th.
17th, June 18th.
18.
Yeah, Ms. Wynn, certainly.
And that's with the present council. The new council does not take office until
Till
July
July.
1st.
That is correct.
I don't know what the fair thing to do is. And I can't say that I would never do anything with those other lots. I do own, a good part of the alley. Or not own, but not, what I own faces a good part of the alley.
Right.
But, and I would hate to be forced into a situation where I would have to do something. But one never knows what the future.
We know, no, that's the truth. That's the truth. No truer statement.
And I really would like to be fair to everyone, and at this point, I don't know enough to be fair.
Okay. What I envision, I'm not going to claim to be a crystal ball reader, but I think there's probably a decent likelihood on June 18th, the
would
council
be.
could vote to vacate the portion of the alley behind the marshal's house. And at the very least. That might be the compromise that suits the marshals and suits everybody else. I'm going to ask for a vote on this motion. I think tonight is Mr. Scott's night to start the roll call. The motion is to table and to act on this request no later than Monday, June 18th of 2018. Mr. Scott.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0. Thank you all very much. We have a third of 6 public hearings. This is down on 10th Street. This is a request. Is it a request made by Warren Dalton or
It was made by Sharon initially.
Sharon? Okay.
And then Warren is her brother-in-law.
Okay.
He lives adjacent to, but he's actually a resident of the county. This is right at the county line.
Okay.
And this is an oddity, it's just a variable width right of way. I explained to everybody, there's a survey in there, and what I shaded is certainly not the scale. But when Westwood Drive became 10th Street extended, and that intersection was no longer a loop, it went from a 90-degree angle to a curve, and they extended out 10th Street. There's a turnaround right there, and there's a significant amount of right of way. If you look where Warren's water meter is, it's probably a good 40 feet off the edge of the pavement.
Right.
And Sharon has made a request, Warren has written a letter supporting the request, saying they would like some reduction in the right of way, so it's no longer a public turnaround. I think people are using it as a turnaround area. I'm sure the town's snowplows probably use it as well and all that sort of thing. We've advertised a public hearing to reduce the right of way to a minimum of 50 feet. But again, you could do something less. It could be 60 feet or 65 feet or whatever's appropriate. I think the public hearing is appropriate tonight. We can get through that step. I'm not asking for a vote tonight because I do think that the applicant needs to have two understandings that we go through tonight. One of them is that any of the surveying costs, and I think a survey needs to be prepared, would be borne by the applicant. And the second is that the applicant will be willing to grant to the town, because we have utilities through there, sewer and water, that they would grant the appropriate easements to the town, where right now it's in the right of way, we need to have an easement. So after the public hearing, I think the best thing to do would again be in next month's meeting, take a formal vote when or as soon as the survey is prepared, then Ms. Dalton would have to prepare it, and the town and she could confer together with the surveyor to make sure it's all covered. No less than 50 feet. It could be something more in the curve that maybe an engineer feels like there needs to be more, but we advertise as narrow as 50 feet.
It's currently 80 feet, isn't it?
It's variable width, but it's,
Oh, okay.
it's pushing 80 feet. It's
Okay.
pretty big on line.
And I did call Sharon the other day, and she said that, she wasn't gonna be able to make the meeting tonight, but she was, and I read her what you wrote in the box, and she said
She's cool with bearing the cost of the survey.
Yes.
Let's, let the record reflect that we have the public hearing, see if there's any comment, and then I'll start working with Sharon if it's agreeable with council to move forward with.
Very good, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go into public hearing now on the request by Sharon Dalton and her brother-in-law Warren, who are neighbors. They're the only property owners affected. This is to vacate right away on 10th Street, which is, according to Mr. Dalton, is being used for loitering and people pulling off on the side of the road. Anyone to speak in favor or against the request? Hearing and seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Members of council, I'd entertain a motion to table, or we can agree by common consent, table and act on the June 18th council meeting,
If the survey is prepared.
or as soon as the survey is prepared.
And the ordinance will be modified, the vacation ordinance will modify a little bit. Right now, we're referencing the plat that's in the book.
Right.
But we'll reference the revised plat.
Common consent.
Common consent, let the record show. Public hearing number 4 is, and this is, I'm gonna need some briefing by staff on this, on
Did you get to read that thing?
the Rice Corporation. A land swap and a land sale with Rice Corporation, who we love.
I don't understand the math.
I will let you guys know, Tessie's gonna explain to you how they exchange, and really what it is, they're trying to clean up title, okay?
Okay.
We have extensions of polymer plates they'd like to have abandoned to them. In exchange, they'd like to give us some right-of-way that's platted over there. I talked to Carl.
Good guys, good guys.
I talked to him on Friday, and I think in some of his documentation, he had proposed building a cul-de-sac at the end of the street. I think he got sticker shock when he called the engineer and found out what a cul-de-sac actually costs. So I told Carl, if that's gonna be a modification in the plan, we still hold the public hearing. But if you don't wanna build a cul-de-sac, perhaps that cul-de-sac could be built in the future if there were future subdivisions of the property, and maybe a little more negotiating. But he called me Friday and asked if he could be relieved of the responsibility, to continue to do this, but relieve the responsibility to actually build a state maintained cul-de-sac. And I think his price is worth from $50,000 to $80,000. I don't think he expected that.
Generally speaking, in layman terms, this is public hearings 4 and 5 are advertised as a surplus property deed of exchange to the Rice Corporation. What are we swapping? What are we?
Well, it's not really that we are swapping
Okay.
anything. The deed of exchange more had to do with the obligation with the cul-de-sac being built.
Okay.
But according to this deed now, this is really just a straight deed from the town of Blackstone to Rice Manufacturing to clean up some title issues that had occurred in the past. Apparently, there were some deeds that, or a deed that was supposed to be recorded that wasn't, some, crazy lines, some contradictory surveys and things like that. And
Right.
so really it's just them trying to clean up the property as it stands right now with what, they thought they had owned through the deeds with what they actually owned when they looked at it.
I'm looking at Polymer Place on the map. That's in blue, and then at the very end, there's a part of the segment of that road in purple, and then off to the left, there's a segment in yellow. That's called Rice Road. I just want to make sure, is the town manager feel comfortable that the town this is not any hardship to the town, this is,
I don't think this is hardship to the town, but I think there's more work to be done
okay?
in order to finish this. I actually, even when we put the packet together, asked you not to vote on this one just yet. Because I think we got work to do with Carl. Because of the cul-de-sac issue that arose. So specifically, I would ask that you hold, but if you read the very beginning,
Yes.
okay, and you look at your map and try to color code it together, it says very quickly, and we'll read it, it said, the town would grant to the grantee, Rice Manufacturing, with special warranty, Lot 2. And Lot 2 is the yellow.
Right.
Rice Road would go to them, okay? They get the yellow. Lot 4, which is the blue stem as well.
Okay.
These are both kind of bisecting the property.
Got you.
Okay. Lot 5, which is 3, 1, 2, 3. That little radius, the pink radius right there. You see where it's at? You get the
Yep,
little
at the
note?
very end, yep.
That would go to them. Lot 8, which is the pink, if I'm not mistaken, would go to them. And we were gonna solve that issue by having a cul-de-sac at the end of that purple.
To turn
But now
around.
he's backed off the cul-de-sac idea a little bit.
Okay.
And he didn't wanna construct it.
We're given a whole lot. I mean, was this really supposed to be conveyed in 1991, or is the town owed money? Because I don't like giving land away if it's really not theirs. I mean, because it's a fair amount of, granted,
I
it's
haven't read the
narrow.
91 deed, and I don't know the answer to
I
that.
think we need to look
They
to
claim
make
it's
sure.
erroneous.
Yeah,
It could very
I'll
well-
be glad to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to just give land. Granted, it's 0.6 acres and 1.1, I mean, it adds up to a fair amount.
You don't have to have any actions tonight, and in fact, we prefer not to,
Yeah.
but conduct public hearings and get those behind us so Tessie can say those boxes are checked if indeed something happens.
All right. I'm gonna just ask anyone, I'll go into public hearing, anyone in the audience tonight to speak for or against the request, the proposed exchange/sale between the town and the Rice Corporation. And Rice Corporation came here in 1986, they opened, that's when they opened, so this 1990-91 timetable is interesting. That does not ring a bell with me, but there must have been something going on at that time. I will declare the public hearing closed, there's no public comment, and I believe by common consent, council can authorize the attorney and staff to give us more information at
Sure.
perhaps the now infamous June council meeting. All right, that takes care of public hearings 4 and 5, our last of 6 public hearings. What is that one? I'm trying to get to the packet now, the big one, the up to $1.6 million bond issue for the East End project.
For TW? Well, I'm waiting on you.
Oh, okay, well,
If you want to wait till Roland from Davenport gets here, he's coming as well?
We can, okay, we will wait till Mr. Cooch gets here.
I think RT's coming, RT Taylor from,
Oh.
there's a bunch of alphabet soup with me and I think he's supposed to be coming too.
Why don't we do the public hearing?
Yes.
And if there are any lingering questions after the public hearing, we did advertise for that, and then take the actions that are necessary.
That's fine. We will now go into public hearing on a proposed issuance of bonds of up to $1.6 million, and this is for the East End.
This is specific to the East End project?
Yes.
This is for water, for sewer, and the town's portion of any drainage improvements. And the drainage improvements were proposed as part of the East End grant application, and the town agreed to pay a portion of which if the grant money comes in. So we know if the grant is rejected, it is not the town's staff intention to proceed on with the drainage improvements. Water and sewer, yes, those are non-negotiable, but then we would back off on the drainage improvements till we come up with money for the other half of that. But this does, in its entirety, pay for the water and the sewer improvements in the project.
Which we're doing no matter what. We've already agreed on that.
Yes.
All right. We will go into public hearing. Anyone from the audience tonight would like to speak for or against this proposed issuance of bonds? As you know, the town has already got the application on file with the state for the grant application. Mr. Wayman Mitchell.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said if it's not approved, then you wouldn't do this, the town wouldn't do the sewer.
If the state rejects the grant application, the town, this council has said, we gotta do water and sewer lines, they're vital course services. But the drainage, which is curb and gutter,
Curb and gutter primarily, yeah.
would be held back until,
We find the funding for
So
the
no
second
cost
half.
belong to the owner.
no, sir, no, this is a town project.
All right, then.
Yes, sir. Anyone else tonight to speak on this, East End funding mechanism, possibly? I'll declare that public hearing closed, and we will have more comment when additional, speakers arrive.
I do have one other item that is inside.
Okay?
Board packet, we do need a motion on, if you didn't know, this is bond counsel T.W. Bruno, who is with McGuire Wood. And T.W. and the town of Blackstone need to have an engagement with one another, and there is an engagement letter attached. And it's my recommendation to hire T.W. since he made the journey here to provide us bond counsel services.
But there's a cap on his services, I believe.
I think we initially were quoted $15,000 for his services.
But I read in here, I thought it was no more than 10.
No, ours is 10. I don't
10.
know. And
Don't get, look here now. Sorry, T.W., we've hardly met.
It was $25,000 total, I remember that.
10 is for
And we need a motion to execute engagement letter.
I would entertain a motion of council to engage the bond counsel if necessary.
So moved.
Mr. Nash has moved and Mr. Scott has seconded with a ceiling of $10,000. I think it's going to be $10,000, period.
nothing more.
Right, not more than $10,000. Because it is potentially right at the $10,000, we have to have a roll call vote. I'll have a roll call vote starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Thank you so much.
Would you like to wait for Roland for the remainder? Or do you have something to present?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have, for him to walk through the financial stuff before you take action on the resolution.
Very good, very good. Moving right along, we'll get into our minutes of our council meeting, and you have 3 different meetings. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
I move to dispense of the reading of the minutes for April 16th, May 2nd, and May 10th.
Mr. Tucker has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, the minutes are outstanding as usual.
I
Thank
think it
you.
would be fun at all the meetings if you let me read all of them.
Years ago, Mr. Ursel Dewey did it every meeting. Entertain a motion made, duly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That gets us through our minutes, and now we're going to go into our visitors. Our first visitor is Miss Jerry Morton. She's not here, but I can just give you an update. She's here to promote the 100-mile yard sale, which is Saturday, July 7th. And Zach Whitlow has agreed to, I think we're going to try to solicit people to come set up in the town square at no cost, but encourage them to register through DBI, through your number and your website and email address. Very good. That's going to be bigger and better this year. That's the 10th year of that yard sale. And we also, I know our next visitors here, we have Jane Barnes and Scooter Coger.
Do you want to waive the fee for the yard sale?
I'd entertain a motion to waive the yard sale fees in Blackstone, Virginia for Saturday, July 7, 2018. Motion been made by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Tucker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What does a yard sale permit cost? Is it 5 or 10?
Do people actually purchase them?
$5.
They
Okay,
actually purchase?
okay, very good.
Surprise.
All right. Jane Barnes and Scooter Coger, who did not bring us chainsaw tonight. Good, how's it going?
For those that don't know me, I'm Scooter Coger. Born and raised here in Blackstone.
Absolutely.
Went to college at Virginia Tech, and that's where I got involved in timber sports. And it's something that I've been wanting to bring back to the town here for a while. We had a small event in 2012 that, due to weather, had a few complications. But what I would like to do is attach to the Arts and Crafts Festival this year, hold a one-day, on Saturday event. We would start potentially right after the opening ceremonies, and I work with Mr. Daniels to have a show going while he's not doing a tractor parade, or if there's other things going on, award ceremonies or anything else going on for the fairs, have an event going on in conjunction with that. So what I'm proposing is an open event, which this will actually be the only open event in the state of Virginia. And there hasn't been an open event in the state of Virginia in, golly, probably 8 to 10 years. So this will be the only one. I'm hoping to use local woods as much as I can. Some of our specialized equipment, we have to use a softer variety of wood, so we will be importing a little bit of wood. But a lot of the wood will be local right here to Nottoway County. And another special thing is we don't compete on yellow pine very much. So all of the chopping events, every one of them cut will actually be a world record. So that'll be really cool. There's never been an open chopping event held on Yellow Pine.
Yellow Pine.
So that's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure if it was attached, but I do have a copy of a waiver form that was on the back end of an entry fee. And this entry is not the template that I want to use. I just merely attached it just so y'all can see what an entry fee form would look like.
It was not in the attachment.
Okay.
So they don't have that.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
So this is a, if you'd like to pass it around, I got a few more copies.
Which would hold both the chamber and the town of Blackstone harmless.
Yes. So I'm looking to hold this event actually on the downhill side beside the armory, so that, you know, as people are moving back and forth around the tavern, they can look down the hill, see the event, they'll be able to hear the event. But, you know, for the kids and for the livestock that'll be on the hill, we won't be so close as to cause a noise issue. I was a little short on those, I
It's
apologize.
okay. That's something we can share. We can share.
But I'm looking to hold 8 separate events. I can go through those if y'all would like me to. But I'm willing to go out and find my own funding, my own sponsors, and I've already got several online to do that. So the cost to the town and to the council will be zero. There's no I'll have the liability waiver signed. So
You say open, that means basically anybody can come up and compete once they sign the waiver.
correct.
That could get real interesting around here.
That could.
Some good old boys. See what they're made of here.
They
I
could.
move to approve the event as presented.
Na-
We need to applaud people for bringing new, interesting things to our town.
Absolutely, especially when they're native son. Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion? Mr. Tucker is seconded. Only question I would have, I think during festivals, we waive noise ordinances anyway. I imagine there will be some noise. So we're
Yes,
looking
sir.
probably at a time period, it wouldn't go past, the festival closes at, it's 10 to 5 both days, right? So we're good on that regard, but I think that's worth noting that, the festival, we waive the noise ordinance, we have bands, that sort of thing. All in favor of Mr. Nash's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks for coming back to Blackstone and giving back. That's so not, that's really, that's special. Moving right along, that's the only visitors we had signed up. I believe Mr. Wayman Mitchell wanted to address council, be visitor number 3.
We got to put it on there.
Wait, no, she told me today, though.
She told you?
She told me today.
Sorry about that. First thing is, we got a jungle over there we have a jungle over there on 4th Street that's, VMAX grown up again. I mean,
Yes, sir.
it's 7, 8 inches tall. The bus stop has.
More than that.
Well, yeah, but the bus stop has grass all around that too. Some of the guys standing on the sidewalk the other day. What I have, is a thing that, oh yeah, the cut, left the turning lane for Spring Hill.
I've got a response I received in the mail today. And I'll make a copy available to you. It was a street committee issue. Believe it or not, it showed up today. And
Okay.
I gave Jennifer a copy of it, and if you'd like one tomorrow, you're more than welcome.
Okay, thank you.
What is it? A letter from the railroad or?
A letter from VDOT.
VDOT.
Okay,
They
all
looked
right.
at the warrants and did the calculations, and their responses on the left turn and a right turn lane came in today.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr.
The
Mitchell.
next thing is, I don't know how to put this, but we had an incident in town. And, oh, I'm sorry. We had an incident in town, and I don't know how far I can go, but I'll say this much. I think we need some training. All our employees need some EEO training, race relations. Not only the employees, but the supervisor and everybody. The police department is the only ones that have done that. They have done that. But according to the way that things happen in my past experience in the EEO program, which I'm a black employment manager, and I was worked for the colonel at Fort Pickett as his guide in protection, protect him from any suits.
All right.
So from what I've seen with everything, I think we have a system, because it was so confusing in the meeting, in the hearing, that nobody could get anything, wasn't working right. You had too many people going at one time, so we need some training that way too. I'll say, who's going to be in charge, who's going to handle the question, everything. All that needs to be done, and so you're trained for that. And the mayor and I had a discussion on something I was telling him about. You can tell when people are telling lies. And I said, I've been watching Judge Judy, but that comes with my training as EEO person. You can tell people when they're telling lies. Judge Judy is the best person I've ever seen do that. And when I said it, the mayor said, I remember something happened was a lie, and that's how he found out. So We don't want no lies going on.
No, none of us do that.
Philip, I believe from that incident, didn't it come up that you were going to have training for
We
all?
already have done it. I think it may be one employee that still has to, one supervisor still has to do it.
It was offered though, just so that people, because you've discussed it, it was offered by an insurance carrier, was it not? At no extra cost to the town?
No extra cost.
Okay.
Who's doing, who else?
Virginia Municipal League.
Virginia what?
Virginia Municipal League, I know,
Okay.
they do all kinds of, they'll do training, like safety training, that sort of thing. And we pay them a good amount of money, so it's nice that they offer those.
All right.
But, so that training has already taken place.
The last supervisor, whoever, will be taking it,
We've got one.
One left.
and they will be taking it.
Yeah, every supervisor had to do it. We took that list of 14 employees, and everybody had to do it, and including me.
Okay.
And it's like all employees will get it.
All the supervisors.
Well, the thing is, I think the employees need to also, so they know when they're discriminated against, or what can happen, because I can say something to you that wouldn't bother you, but it bothers somebody else. Or touch you and then ladies, not just saying hi, you know, touch on the shoulder could be discrimination. It's just.
Let's
simple
look
as
at
that.
it, see if they offer that. I'm sure that would be more cumbersome, but I agree.
Right.
I think that this day and age, it's just the nature of the climate. I think we should, if we could see
Because-
how that could be implemented, if all the police officers have gone through it,
Right.
you know, if we could, does council object to that, what Mr. Mitchell was saying? If it can be done feasibly and without, you know, grinding the workforce to a halt? Is anybody opposed to that?
I agree with you.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Mr. Mitchell, we will make sure that that's addressed and looked into.
Okay.
Thank you. What else do you have tonight?
I think that's all I have.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I don't know if I got anything or not. I'll come back tomorrow.
Come back next Wednesday, maybe. Although we're making good progress. Anyone else tonight to speak who's not on the agenda? This is the first of two opportunities to address your council. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have our fire chief and assistant and deputy chief here with us tonight with a very brief report.
Good evening. Very brief. As you could tell, really nothing's going on. We're just waiting on a whole bunch of words on everything. Reminder that if we do get awarded the EMS grant that was approved by council, that is a $15,000 to $16,000 match. But other than that, we're just sitting tight.
Very good. I have one question. I noticed on the monthly report you had 7 automated alarms. If my memory serves me correctly, the council, the fire department is charging billing for false alarms. I believe it's $100 for a false alarm.
That is correct. Not to residents.
Not to residents, just institutions.
Institutions.
Okay, all right.
$100. You get 2, I believe it's 2 freebies, and then it starts billing at $100 increments.
In a calendar year, 12-month period or something like that?
Correct.
Very good. Any questions for the chief, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for all you do. Knock on wood. All right, we'll move on. You have payment of bills in your packet. Our first batch totals $567,461.48. These are checks not yet approved. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion been made by Mr. Nash, seconded by Mr. Scott. Any questions on these checks not yet approved? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. And your second totals $161,000, $274.29. This is the second batch of bills, and these are the not yet approved. These are checks approved to be paid.
I move to approve this batch.
Mr. Nash has moved, and Mr. Scott and Mr. Tucker has seconded. Any discussion?
Questions.
Mr. Nash has a question.
We have under administration, obviously it's the election cost, $6,728. Is that budgeted, and if so, if not, where does it come from?
Well, like I told you before the meeting, I think the intention is to take it, to request the council take it out of their discretionary funds.
So in the next 4 years, do we need to budget over 4 years to just make it cleaner, I guess? I mean,
Certainly do that, yeah.
okay. I didn't know if, didn't remember it being budgeted last year, so.
What'd you say a total?
$6,728.
Okay.
And you add all the workers and the polling machines.
I didn't realize poll workers made $110 a day. It's a long day, but you
Some
know,
make $416.
Yeah,
Depends
someone
on
must
who
have,
you are.
she must be really good. Or he.
That was a technician.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
technician
okay.
that went around.
Very good.
Under police department, we have 3 dog tests, $933. Is that vet bill or?
That'd be- that'd be-
Alright.
It wasn't our dog, though. They had to go pick up some dogs, and I think they were autopsies, but they're gonna try to recoup the cost
Okay.
through court costs.
Is that recent? I know that, or that's back from that case.
Yes.
3 dog
They
autopsies.
just filled it.
Wow, okay. That was February of 2016, 17.
Under fire department, bay door repair, can that be insurance, being that it's $4,335?
It wasn't a damage, it was a replacement of 2 doors, the 2 personnel doors.
So it's not the bait, it was the
It wasn't
personnel
that
doors.
was hit or anything. and it
Gotcha,
was the 2
it was personnel doors. And I had one other, Carriage Museum, under, it has CenturyLink Communications for $154, but if you go to DBI, it's another total of $117, for a total of $271. Are we paying 2 phone bills for 1 building?
I'd have to look into that.
And that seems high for,
Yeah, it could be.
It's an excellent catch, Mr. Nash.
Wrong. I'll probably look.
okay,
That is an excellent catch.
I believe that's it.
Any other questions? This is where, this is the people's money. These are good questions. Any other questions or concerns? We have a motion and a second to approve the payment. I'll start with Mr. Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Those bills are paid 6-0. Moving right along, we have committee reports. And I believe our first report was airport transportation. We all had a little field trip, I believe, with the master agreement.
This is a renewal of the notorious agreement that the Department of Aviation told us about that had been signed, I believe, in 2007 or 2008, that had been signed committing the town to do certain things in order to receive grant funds, including segregating all fuel revenues, and so we're doing that now.
Right.
All these things. There were some issues that were specific to the agreement, one of which is they reserve the right to approve any and all purchases or sales of property at the airport from the town. And so we met with the new director of the Department of Aviation. He came down and met with us on April 25th. He did write a letter and said, if you meet the following conditions, we'd be happy to release, which included a new survey and execution of this master agreement. The master agreement does continue to have this statement in there that they reserve the right to approve or deny sale of property. I don't think the committee likes that. We asked specifically if Mr. Fields, I believe was the name, would exempt it, and they did not exempt it out of the agreement. We are not eligible for any grant money at the airport for any purpose, as long as we don't have this master agreement.
Have we asked their blessing on the recent lands we've sold to UAV Pro in the last 2 or 3 years? Have we received their blessing?
Not the first one, but this one, we notified them, they responded if you did the following things, including signing the agreement.
Okay.
And they were.
They're okay?
We did communicate with them. We gave them a tour of UAV and Textron, and so they're agreeable. It is aviation related. They're satisfied with it. They want some surveys and they want this signed. I think we're just going to have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis and make our appeal. If you choose to sell a piece of property, the council chooses to sell a piece of property at the airport for whatever purpose, for an industrial prospect or whatever it is, we have another layer of bureaucracy that we have to.
Did they say what their stipulations would be? Does it have to be aviation related?
I think that's what they're looking for. They want to make sure anything that we're doing out there supports or improves the condition of aviation.
Tie our hands like that.
And
but
certainly,
I mean,
and they don't want anything that's going to impede the aviation.
That's very autocratic.
It is, but let's face it, no one's going to want to buy land next to the airport that's not in aviation. I wouldn't think.
Well, we had Service Plus at one time.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
I will tell you this, that the new director of the Department of Aviation, to borrow Mr. Boncure's term, is far less autocratic. I think he's willing to work. I think he comes from the business sector. I think the last administration was much more about rules and bureaucracy and layers. I think this fellow's the kind of guy you can pick up the phone and give him a call.
What's his name again, Mr.
Mark Fields, I believe.
Fields? Okay.
He's a nice guy, but I've got, if they're not gonna grant us, if they're not gonna help us with any grant money, period, then this use agreement doesn't do us a bit of good. And if we agree to something in the use agreement
it's not gonna lead to helping us in any other areas. You have to scratch your head and ask you why you do it.
I think Mr. Moncur is referring to a couple projects we have out there, one of which, and I think council's approved, using fuel revenues, is to build an access road to the industrial park rather than coming through what is now a gated area next to the administration building. The council approved it, we have the funds to do it. The only reason we haven't started yet is Joe is under construction now on his new warehouse, and we didn't want to build a new road and then tear it up with trucks and everything, so we're waiting for him to finish. And we approached the Department of Aviation and Department of Transportation about fund assistance, and both turned us down. Department of Aviation said it was specific to a particular project and not for the airport as a whole. I think it was a narrow-sighted, and I don't think it was an accurate response.
Right.
But I think that was a response given to us by the old administration.
Okay, okay.
So they have not been forthcoming with a lot of cash.
No,
They turned us down a couple times.
Nor do they sound like they even have any inclination to lean that way.
What is your recommendation tonight, Mr. Rovet?
I would sign it so that we can finish up the Joe thing without any blemish on title.
Okay.
Sign it. We've met it and everything, but I think you've got an individual case-by-case matter. If you want to sell a piece of property, you're just gonna have to sit down with the Department of Aviation, and if they say no, then we're gonna have to take exception or involve our.
We got friends in high places. We can play the game. We'll
If
play
we
the game.
want ever to be involved in any grant money, we gotta.
That's okay. Let's go ahead and dance with them. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Is this indefinitely? What's the term of it?
Philip.
What is it? Yeah, what is the length
What's
of
the
this?
term?
Yeah, what is?
I don't know.
Can we make it annual?
Apologize.
Make it every 4 years? In case administrations come and go and we don't like it?
I think that's kind of what I did to factor. I don't think I really meant to, but I apologize. I don't know the terms of this thing, but I think the last one was signed about 10 years ago.
All right. I'd ask for council to, once again, continue the theme tonight. Let's hold on. I want to find out the expiration date on this agreement, and let's approve it potentially at the next council meeting. Would that be okay?
I mean, I don't want to sign something that's 30 years binds us. And
Yeah, that's a long time. I'm going to say, with common consent, are we okay with that? Thank you, airport committee members, Mr. Moncur and everybody, and staff. Your next committee report is simply FYI, there was an employment and police committee meeting that lasted, I think, 2 minutes. And that moved on. Then you have a fire water committee of May 10th, and I understand we're going to have a deal with Pickett. No tap fees at Pickett, but they're going to give us more capacity.
This is the request, yeah.
Okay.
I received an email from Michael Alder, who works with the Public Works Department over there at Pickett. They had a new building going up at the airport, which is an unmanned aerial vehicle unit with the National Guard, has moved from Sandston some of their assets down here. And if you go to the airport, there's a new building under construction just into the front of the old Quonset
Really?
half
Yeah,
moon
right up there.
shape. Michael's request to me was, what's the tap fees? Well, the way we work tap fees in town, if you have an existing water and sewer tap, you don't pay tap fees, okay? We don't pay tap fees, using the old ones. As long as you cap the old ones, if you want to put a new one, you cap it properly, there are no tap fees. If you remember with Fast C, we gave them credit for all the buildings that were on site, that were there within the reservation, okay? They took all of those, plus all the new, and then did the comparison, and it turned out to be roughly a wash. When they had the bigger taps, they were gonna owe us $300-some thousand. They sized down the taps from 8-inch to 4-inch meters and 2-inch to 3/4, and it came out more of a wash. Michael Alder sent me an email saying he would like to have the same tap fee consideration that Fast C has. But that's a bad deal for the Guard. That doesn't work. They actually have, when they dedicated to the town in late 90s, the sewer and utilities, the initial transfer of utilities, there were a lot of buildings on there. And everything is referenced to a 1988 map, okay, that was provided. It shows all the buildings at Pickett. We have multiple copies here. So instead of going back and forth I took the tap fee from this building that was here in 1988 and applied it to the airport. I came up with a different idea. I said, guys, this tap fee thing is always a conflict between the town and Pickett. It's non-stop. You and I have seen both emails from Michael Alder and Ed Brown and contractors, and I've got them stopped.
It's
and
complicated. It's
a mess.
Yeah.
One of the ways to solve that, I think, is to propose to Pickett, and we've talked to the colonel on post, and we've talked to Michael, and I believe the adjutant general, who was retained, by the way, who's
Timothy
a
Williams.
good guy. I think they're willing to entertain in exchange for tap fee waiver at Pickett. Tap fee waiver at Pickett. Because remember, they don't put meters on their stuff. So we don't have the maintenance of 8-inch meters and 6-inch meters. There are no meters, okay? In exchange for the waiver of tap fees, they would give us 250,000 gallons of capacity, per the letter that Billy originally wrote to the National Guard asking for the capacity.
How much were we asking for? That was 250?
250,000 gallons.
Let me ask you, since we're making a deal, and I know they're gonna be watching, listening to this, so I don't mind.
Sure.
I say we go higher than that. If we're waiving tap fees for perpetuity, for infinity, I say, Uncle Sam, National Guard, who knows how much we may grow? I say you go 350, 400. And
all good.
Why not do on the water end as well? Do we have, I mean, I know
I don't think we have a capacity issue at the water. We have an immediate chronic
I know on sewer.
on sewer.
But why don't we make it clean and say, look, we don't know what we're beholden, that reservoir is our water source. Make it real simple. We want a $400,000 400,000 gallons capacity.
Water and sewer.
And no tap fees forever. That's how much we love y'all.
I think you'll get an approval, and I truly am battling back and forth, and, I'm sure David Flippin and everybody gets frustrated because I've put stop works on projects out there. The new Mount site, I told Ed, man, we can't go until they pay the tap fees, and it's a headache.
And no tap fees forever. While we're losing revenue there, we'll be selling more water if there's more buildings.
And the reason I like this better than what they responded to the mayor's original letter was, originally, we asked for 250,000 gallons. They, in response, said, yes, but we want concessions on our rates.
The in-town rate.
We want all in-town rates, and we want you to only bill us for sewer commensurate with what you bill us for water. And that was like $100,000+ a year. It was a $multi-$100,000 a year loss in revenue. This would not be technically a loss in revenue. It would be a loss in potential revenue.
Well, let's,
What was the county, what did we, with that potential grant, what is the total number?
I talked to John last week, and I don't think they've really submitted anything to the, I think they're waiting for Nottaway Commons to pull the plug, and I think they're going to do something. I called John last week because not only this issue, but we also have a wastewater treatment plant upgrade project that's out to bid right now. They'll be opening up the business early next month, and logically, we would try to do some of those kinds of things and some of that work at the same time. And I don't think the county has, they've made the commitment, they voted to do it, but I don't think they've submitted to the tobacco
But
committee.
here's the thing about that makes this deal potentially so beautiful. This takes the tobacco application, makes it unnecessary, which frees up the county's allotment for other projects, one of which might be in Blackstone. And this also gives us a chance to get more capacity. And I say, let's go high. Let's aim high. I say, look, this is no tap fees forever. 400,000 gallons capacity on the sewer end and the water end. We love y'all.
Beautiful.
Because they got to remember, folks, we love Pickett. But we got to remember, this community's water and sewer treatment facilities in 1942, granted a long time ago, were condemned by the Army, and we had to hook up out there. And then when Pickett closed in 96, they gave us stuff that has cost us.
60 million, which potentially could cost us a bunch.
The deal with Nottaway, that was part of our bargaining chip, so I would like us to discuss that later on, obviously. I don't want us to just say, you're off the hook for the grant, because
No.
it was part of the bargaining of the deal. So
We ought to get a little credit for this, shouldn't we?
correct. So I don't want to just say, we're done.
I agree.
But,
Well said, Mr.
We'll
Mayor.
negotiate back with Fort Pickett at 400, the terms of the mayor.
I just did a number, council. I may be going too high, but I believe you.
You always aim high. Aim high.
You can go low.
I mean, no tap fees forever, folks. All right, let's go. I entertain a motion. Members of council, what's your pleasure? Council, speak through the motions.
I move we go for the 400,000.
400,000.
And that would waive the tap fees at Pickett, knowing we won't have an obligation to do meters, replace meters, fix meters. So if they want to go to an 8-inch tap, by means,
Do they
have
make
at
the
it.
taps themselves?
Do they make the taps? We make all the water taps.
Like, do we have any expense in it, is what I mean?
Yeah, we have some expensive. Andre goes out
Saddle,
there.
I guess.
Yeah, and then whatever materials. There's a pretty symbiotic relationship out there. They help us, we help them, and try to get
If
stuff
they
done.
put in build a new building out there and need a 3-inch tap, who's gonna pay for it?
Typically, unless there's something unusual, they have a contractor, and it's in the contractor's responsibility to run the water connection. Andre just makes the
actual saddle.
connection. He actually goes in there and puts the cork stop in and that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's the contractor who's building the new post headquarters, or he's building a new facility or building or dining hall or something, it's usually included in the, that's why Ed Brown and I are usually at odds if he's doing a project, or Jason Walker or somebody doing it. But very rarely does Andre have to do anything more than.
You're not seeing it costing us per building $5,000. I mean, you don't
Oh,
see.
no.
You like the motion?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I would ask that the clerk include in the motion and any communication we have at Fort Pickett that we stress and emphasize that the town does fully realize and supports the what's referred to in the past as M Day, Mobilization Day. If there is a catastrophic or significant mobilization of troops, we understand that there is sacrifice to town, but we may have to, reserve extra capacity for Pickett. That's been a long-standing deal. All in favor of Mr. McCure's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Just a brief timeout. Are our speakers here? Our guests from out of town? Do we have everybody we need?
Pretty good. You guys got everything?
All right.
Your bond counsel and Davenport are both here to make recommendations on the 1.6 million deal. We've had
We had the public hearing on engaging bond counsel, and the council agreed to do so. And we would entertain any expertise you gentlemen care to share with us. Just state your name for the public and the firm you're with, and we're glad to have you in Blackstone.
Thank you. My name is R.T. Taylor. I'm with Davenport and Company. We serve as financial advisor to the town. What you're getting in front of you right now this evening is a little booklet we put together. It essentially gives you the results of a bank RFP process that we issued on your behalf, and we've got some analysis in here that we'll go over, and at the back of it we'll end with a recommendation to move forward, as well as a timeline by which to do so. So if you would, just turn with me to page 1, and I'd ask that if you have any questions throughout, don't hesitate. I'd rather keep it more conversational. I'm going to move through it fairly quickly, just in the interest of time, but please, again, don't hesitate to ask any questions if you have them. So page 1, just a little bit of an overview. We went out with an RFP. Like I said, we coordinated with town staff to go out to the banks. We had a focused distribution of the RFP. And you can see right here in the middle of the page, there's a matrix. It shows the water, sewer, and stormwater projects that y'all are currently contemplating. There are some potential grant monies associated with this, so we're only looking at financing about $1.5 million. We did ask the banks in their proposals to consider a 15-year and a 20-year amortization loan. And you'll see here shortly how they responded. We did receive proposals from all 3 banks, Benchmark, BB&T, as well as Citizens. And if you will, just turn with me to page 2. And we've got a brief summary matrix at the top and some bullets to give sort of highlights of each of the proposals. The only bank that provided us a fixed interest rate for the entire term was BB&T, whether it be 15 years or 20 years, it's fixed for the life of the loan. 15-year rate was 4.5%. The 20-year rate was 5.13%. And then if you will, on rows 2 and 3, right below that, you'll see where we have a couple other proposals where the interest rate might be fixed for a shorter period of time, but they're willing to amortize it for the 15 or 20-year period. So Benchmark provided a 4.49% for 15 years, okay? And that's fixed for the first 10 years, okay? And that's right on top, you can see it's right on top of where BB&T's fixed rate was for the entire 15 years. BB&T, when it stepped up to look at a 20-year fixed rate, went up to 5.13. Benchmark's interest rate, while it's still locked in for 10 years and would reset thereafter, they were willing to amortize it over 20 years. Okay? Citizens, just to give a brief overview on their rates, were quite a bit higher, and they weren't locked in for as long. So they were willing to look at 5- and 7-year rates. A couple key observations below. BB&T provided the fixed interest rate for both options. They did allow for prepayment any time, but you'd have to prepay it in whole. You couldn't partially prepay. So I'm making that distinction now because it's sort of important when we
Right.
get through here. And it would be at a 1% prepayment penalty during the first half, par thereafter. So no penalty after the first 7.5 to 10 years, depending. Citizens, they did, like I said, provide interest rates that were slightly higher than BB&T and Benchmark. They weren't willing to necessarily lock it in for as long, and there were some other requirements, a minimum balance, if you would, during that tenure. So based on these observations, we're going to focus the remainder of the presentation on the Benchmark and BB&T proposals.
Okay.
Any questions thus far?
No question. I'd like to just offer a statement, as I do from time to time. For the record, I am on the board of Citizens Bank and Trust Company. I will not be having any input into this decision. Go right ahead.
Okay.
I'd like to over-disclose that.
Gotcha. All right, so page 3 just really stacks the numbers up beside each other and says, okay, here's the bottom line, if you will. In columns B and C, you're going to see the 15-year options from Benchmark and BB&T compared. In columns D and E, you will see the 20-year options compared. And so what I want to do is just very quickly go through one column, and then the methodology will apply across the board, okay? So under column B, we're looking at closing this mid-June, so June 14th is the assumption here for the closing date. We've worked with Philip and Jennifer on the structure, on when we want to start paying interest, when we want to start paying principal, how that falls into the pro forma for the utility. And we've shown that it's at, for BB&T, the 15 years at 4.5%, and what the size of the borrowing would be, $1.5 million. There's some cost of issuance. And at the end of the day, if you're looking through columns, from fiscal year 19 down, you'll see that the annual debt service under that scenario is $155,000 a year. Okay? So that's how this is going to flow through. And to the bottom, you will see totals, and that's the debt service you would pay over the entire life of the loan. So if this were to go to maturity at 15 years for BB&T at 4.5%, the total debt service you'd pay back, you borrow 1.5, you pay 2.1. Okay?
It's close. It was good competition there. I mean, it was a horse race there.
That's right. So if you compare that, just bottom line, if you will, real quickly, line 33, column B, $2,189,000, that compares to the Benchmark proposal of $2,181,000.
With no prepayment penalty.
And there's no prepayment penalty, but what we want to point out there is that the rate is assumed to stay at 4.49%. You can see the dotted line there after year 28. We've assumed those last 5 years would stay at 4.49%. The reality is, out there in the future, we don't know what rates might do.
Right.
Okay? But under that scenario, it's essentially break even within $8,000.
Philip, what's your idealistic term? I mean, how long do you think we'll hold on to this?
I want the lowest payment for the longest amortization possible. The two issues that I had specific were, I had requested that it be a 2-year interest-only deal, and that's why the first payments aren't until May of 2020. I had asked for that because we have two things going on. We're going to have a significant amount of debt coming off the book in 2019.
Medical Center.
We'll pay off one of our bonds, we'll have cash available, and then the second thing is we have a finance plan that'll be finished, we hope, in October of 19, and then that would allow us to go ahead, finish that line, and then move on to the next, which would be pay this off as early as possible. I'm not dismayed by the 10-year reset, because if we are making payments on this in 10 years, then I've miscalculated something.
So your goal is by 2028 this is paid
Before
off?
the reset, we'll have it paid off. That's the plan.
That's what I was asking.
And that's reasonable to expect, but like you said, it'd be
Just
nice
have to
because
point it out because
Sure.
that is, it is a variable, but again, it falls in lines with plans to prepay in 10 years, which is why the in whole or in part is important, because under the BB&T proposal, if you were to prepay, you have to prepay the whole loan
and it's a 1% penalty.
during the first half. So if you went 15 years, after 7.5 years, you wouldn't have to have a prepayment penalty.
I got you. Okay.
After 10 years on the 20-year amortization, you wouldn't have a prepayment penalty.
Very good.
So, if you will, speaking to Philip's point there, if you look at 20-year options, which is going to be the recommendation because it provides the lowest annual payment.
Right on.
And again, with the benchmark proposal, you're going to have the option to, if you're funding $124,000 in annual debt service and you have the flexibility to prepay and you have the cash flows to do so on an annual basis, that would be the preference. And that would lead to paying it off earlier than the 10-year outlier. Okay?
Yep.
So if you would, just flip to page 4. That's the key considerations. And I at the risk of repeating myself, I just will go through these quickly to hit the highlights. Benchmark's proposed rate and BB&T's proposed rates were right in line with one another. Benchmark was slightly lower for the 10-year lock. We are proposing that we stick with the more flexible prepayment provisions. While BB&T does allow for prepayment ahead of maturity, it does have a penalty during the first half, whereas Benchmark does not, and the plan is to prepay it in the first 10 years anyway. So in closing, on page 5, the recommendation would be to, we've discussed this with bond counsel, we've discussed it with staff, and the recommendation is to proceed with the financing with Benchmark, choose to amortize it over 20 years, and to the extent possible, prepay it ahead of the 10-year reset. So tonight, we're looking for formal action by resolution to give us some guidance to move forward with whatever your preference is. I will note that Benchmark would like us to notify them by tomorrow if we want to move forward with them, and that's usually a phone call or an email, just to let them know.
Members of council, you've heard the great report, very thorough, very easy to follow, and that's always easy with different banks and different products. What is your pleasure?
Move it, we, go with the Benchmark.
Is there a second?
20 years.
For the term.
20 years?
Scott second.
Mr. Scott has seconded. Mr. Novak, you were pleased with the proposal? And just curious, because you're out there in the finance world, this is a local RFP, compared to what might be out there in the marketplace, are you pretty impressed with these proposals?
Yes, it's very competitive. From what we're seeing. Whether you had a couple other banks, maybe nationally, that participate nationally, that come in, they might come in with a lower rate. The trade-off might be more restrictive terms and conditions.
Right.
So the prepayment flexibility might not be on par with Benchmarks. There might be some other catches. So.
You heard it, folks. We got a good competitive proposal. We got a motion made and seconded. Because this is such a big amount of money, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you for coming here. Any other business on this issue that we need to discuss?
I just want to make sure if that vote was for the resolution in the packet. I believe that would be the intention, yeah, the resolution that was included.
Yes, yes.
Should benchmark.
Yes.
Do we need to specify who executes it? Well, we got them here, do we need to?
There should be an execution space order at the bottom.
Put it in the E one account, just so we need to normally have.
Oh,
to
we got
specify whose
on a couple of
authorization.
this. Let's make an authorization to have the mayor execute the necessary documents so we don't have to have another meeting, just in case.
Yes. Is there a motion to that effect? Scott has moved. Mr. Tucker has seconded. All in favor of authorizing me to sign, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
You got to make the payments.
That's right. I'm gonna come back to me. For sale. All right. Thank y'all. Be safe driving home. Folks, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We are now on, we did Fire and Water Committee. Accounting Finance is next with the budget highlights. You got a proposed budget highlight. Mr. Green did ask me in his absence, Mr. Winterbeck, you were free to fill in for him.
We have a budget at this time, albeit still in draft form, and I still think of morphing organism here, but we have a budget of $16,912,429. We are not proposing any rate increases at this time. I think we talked about electric rates at this time. I think it's still premature. The proposal of the initial VEMA Dominion Power estimated rates was a slight increase of 0.7%. And I think the committee at this point is ready to and prepared because we had some left on the table last year. And so I think the committee is certainly willing to keep those rates level up to a 1.1% decrease if necessary, okay? But all this is still speculative on the electric rate. Everything else is pretty good, but electric rate, after the 1st of June, Dominion's obligated to give us the final annual rates for the upcoming July to July financing cycle. So this budget is built on and will be built on until we hear from Dominion at no increase to the electric rate, okay? Water and sewer, we raised water and sewer rates 3% in anticipation of East End last year, so that's part of our calculation, plus the debt retirement, plus paying off early. So we're not asking for any water and sewer rate increases. I think we're gonna be all right. We're gonna cut it close, but I think we're gonna do fine. And the only increase in rates that so far have been proposed by staff, myself included, is a doubling of the burial permit fees. Not popular.
I just can't leave that
I get it.
cemetery alone, can you?
But I just want everybody to know, we're not doing it because we want more money.
I know.
But the cemetery as a fund is in the red. It's just not producing enough revenue to pay for Winston to cut grass over there. I've been doing cemetery for about 6 months, since December when Gwyneth left, and I've sold a total of 1 grave. Not 8 grave section, 1 grave.
I did bring it up during committee that I would like, being that it creates a hardship on the family because you've got to come pay this, what, $200, $400, whatever it is, at that time of their death to be buried. So I did ask if we could charge that the funeral home directors all pay that. And so that's automatically included in all
It's
of their
interesting.
fees. And
You're not looking for, this is a budget highlight, because the budget we
highlight.
formally proposed at the early June meeting to advertise, but, so what Mr. Nash is saying is that instead of the town saying, a grieving widow,
need to come in here and pay.
please give us your
Sorry
money.
about your husband, yeah. Here, I need
funeral home
$100.
directors will-
Are we gonna give the funeral home directors a script to say? Because if I'm the funeral home director, say, look, I hate doing this, but the town's making me do this. I mean, I don't know if we get the public relation, it might be worth considering, we might get a
Well,
public.
he's gonna end up being part of the negotiation for the price to begin with.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be included in, kinda like included in your overhead.
It's at best awkward. Now,